Not something you see every day. That neither, right? Close up of my face. Just makes you wonder. Are the vultures gathering? The amber fields of grain, purple mountain majesties right now. Heading down to the river with some family. Second to the last day they'll be here. I'll actually get a little free time to do something different for a change. Maybe even compile myself a actual podcast here. There's so much going on right now. I don't know about you guys, but ever since was it Saturday, just yesterday, in my time, my mind has just been racing a mile a minute, just thinking of all the different possibilities, questioning everything like you're supposed to, right, guys? If you're a true free thinker. I mean, I know there's a lot of like so-called alt news media, talking heads on the right now that want nothing to do with any kind of questioning surrounding this Trump attempted assassination attempt. But that's not really how my mind works. Like I have been lied to so many times in the past, over and over and over again. If you're wondering, yes, that's Bozzy McGee back there. I don't know why he wants to sit in the back seat today. But yeah, after being lied to and lied to and lied to me it's just natural to question everything, especially when it comes to, what's the official narrative that they're putting out there. And so, when this happened, my first inclination, my first just kind of gut reaction was just to naturally question things, right? And then it took, some people a little while, and other people started to question things. I mean, the biggest question is like, why was this guy allowed to climb up a rooftop? And if you look at the Google Earth of the area where the shooting took place, it's a pretty obvious place to me, where you might have a sniper, right? I mean, I've been places like, I think it was in, where was that? Little town, was it like Milliken or something like that? Man, I'm bad with my memory lately. Getting a lot of rain, by the way. Which is good, not necessarily a good thing to go to the river. That's Colorado, right? I mean, you make plans, and then your plans get changed by the weather. Yeah, after the fires, the Marshall Fire that swept through the plains here in Colorado, the most destructive fire in state history. Biden was in town when we were down there driving around trying to look at some of the damaged areas just outside of like Boulder area. And I thought it was interesting, even in these little towns where Biden just happened to be, his motorcade must have just passed through because we missed it. But he was in and out like super quick. He had his little speech. Guaranteed those federal funds coming in for the state of Colorado for all the destruction during those grass fires, and like literally just swept through. I still have like some really good footage of the neighborhoods just leveled, right? Cars melted, a lot of similar scenes to what we saw in Maui. But so Biden came through town real quick, and even in this small little town just outside of Louisville, I think it might have been, just outside of Boulder, I could spot snipers on the rooftops, right? And so in a highly controlled area, like, was it Butker, Pennsylvania, where they had this rally Butner. Why wouldn't the Secret Service have, why wouldn't the Secret Service have a... Okay, something's going on up in the head here. What are you doing? Why? Just picking up junk again. We need more junk. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. And so is Bozzy. It's my little sidekick. So yeah, why would the Secret Service have completely overlooked? Like I tweeted out today, pretty much everybody I know has thought of the very real possibility that somebody might try to take out Trump, right? The very real scenario, at least according to all the, the narrative that you hear from the mainstream alternative media, as David Icke calls them. It's a very real possibility that somebody's going to attempt to assassinate Donald Trump, right? But for some reason, the Secret Service, they acted that day like the thought had never crossed their mind, right? Because they couldn't even secure obvious rooftops within line of sight of Donald Trump and the podium. And only, was it 400 feet away? Easy shot, by the way, from anybody who can shoot a rifle with a scope on it. So why weren't those buildings secure? Why wasn't there heavy surveillance, police and Secret Service presence in all of these areas? Why was this guy allowed to, out in broad daylight, climb up the rooftop with a gun, rifle strapped around his back, where at the same time people on the ground, citizens, onlookers, were warning police, pointing to Secret Service while this was happening.
And watch and listen to the rally, right? We couldn't see them, but we could hear them. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling police and the Secret Service.
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? This is not a big place.
And all the while, was it like a minute, I think, transpired from the time that the snipers on the rooftop just above Trump spotted this guy. Almost a minute in time lapsed, and Trump was still allowed to sit there speaking, without some kind of communication going on, telling Trump of a very real danger to his life. Very real and present danger. Why was he allowed to continue talking? And why did the snipers wait until this guy got off, I think it was like 8 shots already, before they finally, blew his head off? A lot of things just don't add up. And so things like that lead me to continue to question, and start asking more questions, digging in deeper. This is what happened after 9/11. This should be a natural response, especially from people on the right? When you know the media is completely controlled, and again, everything that's put out by the legacy media, there's always an agenda behind it. Knowing that all the world is a stage, right? And national politics is the greatest show on earth, as I put it. It's just natural to question. Let me check, see what she just stuck in the back of my truck. Make sure everything's secure. I'll be right back. Whew. It's wet and sloppy out there. Anyway, getting back to my original point. So it's natural to have questions, right, folks? And it's a dangerous thing not to question. Any time that there's a story this big, an event that unfolds, a tragedy on the national stage, right, on the world stage, and you always have to ask once again: problem, reaction, solution. Who benefits? What's the end game? What's the solution that they'll project out there, that they'll present to the American people to solve this current problem of national insecurity, right? The security state, the military-industrial complex, the surveillance state, the surveillance complex, the big government always needs a problem that they got to solve, right? They got to justify, how they got so big, right? They got to make it a very real scary threat. How does the old, I think it's the Ben Franklin quote goes: "Those who sacrifice liberty for a little bit of security deserve neither." So I just have to ask myself, I'm looking at the response from the right now. I always try to be, as soon as you get yourself too involved, right? Like this I forgot his name right now, but he talks like, a good fella. He talks like Al Pacino or something like that. And of course, he's a painter, and he sells his paintings, and he makes a living at it, right? Being a blowhard on social media. Like him or love him. But yeah, of course, he was already painting himself a masterpiece of the heroic Trump fist pump, fight. Originally, when I saw that video, I put that short out like literally minutes after this started trending on Twitter. I saw Trump shot in all capital letters trending on Twitter, and I went to click on it, thinking about a different type of shot, right? That Trump was instrumental in. Yeah, the jab father. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't, like probably some of you, I couldn't believe my eyes when I started to watch some of this footage of Trump actually getting shot at. And I was like, wow. As soon as I watched that, I thought, well, this changes everything, doesn't it? This changes the whole political environment in this country. And it's almost like, again, like we're repeating the past. I feel like we're stuck in this time warp where we're reliving as a country, the Red Scare with Russia, the Cold War era, the McCarthyism, right? With all of Trump's talk of like weeding out all the traitors within government and the media.
In a few minutes, Jerry Donovan will be asleep. But tonight, instead of the sweet dreams his wife wished him, let's give Jerry a nightmare, a real red nightmare. Now, you remember that Russian town we saw earlier? The town that looked like it belonged in Kansas or Ohio or Vermont? Let's lift that town out of the Soviet Union. Let's superimpose it on Jerry's hometown. And those precious freedoms Jerry so complacently accepts. Let's see how many freedoms Jerry might lose if suddenly he had to live under communist domination.
This was not invented by a Russian. The man's name was Bell, Alexander Graham Bell. And he was an American. Get that, comrade. Everything on this table is as phony as the town. The rotten system you call communism.
It's just, And now we have assassination attempts on key political figures. And so this is my running theory. I'm going to run it past you. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a full-length podcast on this topic very shortly. I know my hat looks kind of funny, but sometimes it gets sat on, you know how it is. This is my running theory. I personally don't believe that the deep state wants Trump dead. And I've said this in the past, that I believe Trump is the best-selling product of the deep state. Because he's so damn convincing, isn't he? They have to, as the, whether it's a real quote or not that people attribute to Albert Pike, it's a pretty good quote. How they will give them a champion, right? When people need a champion, they will supply it for them. And Trump from the beginning was branded as the outsider, right? Even though, despite all evidence to the contrary, as swampy as Trump was coming into politics, right? Long-time Clinton friend and ally, donor, donated over $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation, donated to Kamala Harris's campaign twice, just chummy, right? With the Hollywood, right? I mean, Ari Emanuel was his Hollywood agent. Brother of Rahm Emanuel, the sons of the Zionist terrorist. So, from the beginning, Trump was branded as the outsider, right? He was there to fight for us, the common man, to take America back, make America great again. And it appeared, at least on the surface, that the entire system, including all the mainstream media, was against the guy, right? And it's a very, very compelling case that they've created. And that's why, all this just fits the script. The show trials, I called this out, that Trump will walk away scot-free, unscathed. He's not going to see any jail time. They slapped him with some fines, but then he had the highest campaign fundraiser in history, I think it was, like $500 million the next couple following days after the felony charges. So again, there's a reason why they call him the Teflon Don, right, guys? But I think the supply and the demand, the product that they have turned Trump into, the things that Trump was able to get away with when he was in office because he had that right cover, right, guys? I mean, you even had there's videos that I've just recently stumbled on BitChute. Alex Jones trying to invent these theories around Trump's Operation Warp Speed, calling it reverse psychology.
Why would he say something so well thought out and so well researched and then 180 a few months later? And the answer is reverse psychology.
Right. And how does that theory hold up over time, Alex Jones? Like, it seems how Trump to this day still clings to the false belief that Operation Warp Speed saved all of mankind, right? Hundreds of millions of lives. And so my first impression is when I see the reaction from the right naturally, right? People are more convinced than ever now. Now that Trump received this little flesh wound, and I'm not even certain about that. I was trying to so let me finish with that thought. So at this point, my idea is that, you know what, it doesn't matter what kind of campaign promises Trump made. It doesn't matter how much he does a 180 as soon as he gets in office. It doesn't matter how much he tramples on the constitutions. This guy can pass gun laws, and he will still have the support of the majority of the conservatives on the right now. Because this guy has got, literally more street cred than any other president in history when it comes to standing up against the deep state, right? Okay, what's going on here? I guess we're stopping here. Give me a second. Man, it looks cold to me. I don't know if I want to go out there in the river. What do you guys think? It's a pretty cool area. Alright, I'll check back in a bit, finish that thought. So to me anyway, an event this big, it's just natural for me to question, right? And, you know, again, the question is asked, who benefits? Now, this country, and I really liked, actually, RFK Jr.'s, he was having an interview, and they asked him about as the news was just breaking, they asked him about the assassination attempt on Trump, and he just really had some really wise words, I believe, in my mind, for the American people. And he just continued to stress, you know, that this should not lead us to more division, because this two-party illusion is what is tearing this country apart.
I think we all need to take a breath now and step back and see that this is the product of so much vitriol and so much anger, and that when we release that kind of anger into the universe, it inevitably comes back and reverberates with these kind of consequences. And all of us now have to start looking at each other and saying, we're all Americans. We're better than this. This isn't the way that we want our country to look to our children, to look to people around the world. We need to stop hating on each other. We need to stop telling other people in the world that the other guy is going to destroy the republic. We need to recognize we're all Americans. We all love our country. It's time now to pray for the president, pray for his family, for President Trump, and to start being kind to each other, and to start being generous to each other, and to resist all of the implications that we continue in this kind of vitriolic way. Let's have an election. Let's go forward as Americans. Let's love each other. Let's trust each other. And let's rebuild this country as a community.
And sure enough, you know, as soon as the news hit, there's already people on the right that were, criticizing the coverage from the leftist media, painting this guy, calling him an Antifa, without any evidence, by the way. I went and looked that up and tried to find any article that I could find, and there was like literally nothing coming out about this guy for hours, which I thought was a little suspicious. You know, we've had school shooters whose identity was put out there, you know, within an hour or two after the event. And I think it took like a good, 5 hours or more for them to release the name of this guy. But before that, everybody on the right was convinced that this was an Antifa member, right? When all there was some footage of the guy laying sprawled out, shot in the head on a rooftop with a rifle. So it just continues to feed the division, the hate, the resentment, the suspicion. You have people on the right. You have Alex Jones and some of his co-hosts just reinforcing the idea of, justifying all of the Patriot Act legislation that they hoisted on the American population after 9/11. Despite all of the media and the FBI being turned against right-wing conservatives leading up to and especially after January 6th, you still have right-wing conservatives basically begging for more police state, begging for more of our liberties to be shredded by demanding that their fellow Americans be classified as terrorists.
You either have a radical leftist that tried to assassinate Donald Trump, which it's time for us to get serious. It's time for the media to get serious. It's time for American liberals to get serious, because this has been the case for a long time. This has been the case for decades. The American left are terrorists. This is not the first time a leftist has tried to assassinate a president of the United States. This is not the first time that American liberals and progressives and Democrats have engaged in outright political terrorism. The American left is a terroristic body.
You know, when I first started hearing that word being misused or redefined to be homegrown terrorists, to be American citizens, right? Domestics. You know, it's pretty obvious where they were leading us, right? Where any American citizen can potentially become a threat to our national security. And if that's the case, then you can kiss your liberties, you can kiss your constitutional rights goodbye, because the state will always use that as a justification to suspend those rights. You know, to your right to a trial, you know, your habeas corpus, all of these, you know, your right to privacy. You can kiss all those rights goodbye if you want to classify the American people themselves as a terrorist group or a potential terrorist lone wolf, let's say. Because then they will use all the same terrorist, anti-terrorist legislation against us. And you know, you have people on the right all the time arguing for the fact that, you know, foreigners don't deserve our constitutional rights. You know, we should be able to torture foreign terrorists, keep them in prison without any right to trial for as long as we feel the need, right? And so if that's how you want to classify foreigners, and you want to heap the American people under that same umbrella of, I would call it law, but it's lawlessness, tyranny, and you're going to get what you deserve, basically. And again, everybody is a suspected terrorist. And so, of course, you have, you know, Mike Johnson with his private, smoky, dark room meetings that convinced him that it's in our best interest to allow the government to continue to spy on the American people through, you know, FISA. It just makes perfect sense, right? Because in reality, all these captured governments of the world, the real war is between these criminals who have captured the governments of the world and we the people, because they fear the masses. We have the numbers. They have the ridiculous centralization of power. You know, like people made the point over the 4th of July. You know, how the Boston Tea Party and War for Independence, King George III, how minuscule his tax was to provoke such a rebellion. When in this modern day and age, they're taxing us like, 50% of our income?
Oh man, I'm excited. It's July the 3rd. It is Independence Day Eve. Can you believe that in 1776, we declared independence from England over a 2% tax on tea? That's right, independence. So we went out and we bought some fireworks and paid 7.5% sales tax. And tomorrow we're gonna shoot them mugs, and we're off work from our jobs where we pay 35% income tax.
Every other tax under the sun on top of that. And we just put up with it, right? But in numbers, we are strong. So they must keep us divided, continually divided. And like I want to stress again, and I've stressed it before in the past, that this two-party illusion, this controlled opposition paradigm, is the greatest threat to our quote-unquote democracy. And it's actually a republic, you guys know that? Yeah, it's poison to the tree of liberty. I know you're probably finding it hard to take me seriously right now with this cute dog right next to me sticking his big nose in the camera. But so here's my going theory. I know I brought this up earlier. I never finished my point. Here's my running theory, and this is just a possibility. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, just based on what I've seen with my own eyes, what evidence we've actually been presented with. You know, like Carl Sagan quote, you know, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so it's almost, I get the impression that, you know, we had the bullet shot. This White House correspondent guy who had his camera set on an unusually high shutter speed. That's my first impression, was like, how do you just by chance capture a bullet in mid-flight? Unless you have a specialized camera and a super high shutter speed. And from what I looked up in this article, you have to have your camera shutter speed at least, what is it, 1/8,000th of or something like that. And even in the article, they made the point that that is not anywhere near the standard in the industry. And what I would ask is, wouldn't that interfere with the picture quality? Wouldn't it make it really washed out? I mean, that's been my experience, at least in photography. But so they just happen to have this cameraman at this right angle, took this shot at that exact split fraction of a second, and just happened to have his camera on that perfect setting where you could actually capture a bullet flying past the president's head. And so, you know, again, building the case. Here's your piece of evidence. Trump was almost shot in the head. What's the only evidence other than that, you know, magic bullet shot picture? And it was a magic bullet, guys. Just the fact that Trump was turning at this exact moment and the bullet would graze his ear, the top of his earlobe, right? You can't think of a more superficial wound than that, right? This high velocity object, they're saying now it was an AR, of course, right? 5.56, most likely. And again, like a typical sniper, anybody that's trained in the art of shooting with a scope at range, 400 feet is nothing, right? You want to shoot a watermelon 400 feet, it's pretty easy, right? So yeah, he misses that I think it was the second shot he took. The other one just grazes Trump's ear. Talk about a miracle bullet, right? In the JFK, they had the miracle bullet that traveled through, you know, the front seat passenger, you know, went through Kennedy, did this like ricochet, crazy chaos through different fleshly objects. Talk about a miracle shot for this to not have just been, you know, another half an inch to the right and it penetrated Trump's skull, and how different the world would be, right, guys? So that alone, and of course you already have like evangelicals and people putting out how this was divine intervention. There's like depictions of Trump with his angel deflecting the bullet and all this stuff. So that alone is like really far-fetched in my mind, that you would have an attempted assassination on Trump. He would actually be wounded, and it would be that close to hitting him in the head. But it still missed, and he's walked away perfectly fine. And so my first question was, could it be that he actually didn't get shot in the ear? And I started to zoom in on those pictures of his ear, and it's really hard to see any actual damage to the ear. You see a bunch of blood, you know, kind of almost coagulated looking on the top of his ear. And of course, you know, a couple streaks down his face, made for, you know, that such a heroic pose. And again, like people asked, if you have an active shooter shooting at the president, is the Secret Service going to allow the president to stop in that moment for that camera shoot and make that heroic, defiant fist pump? where he said over and over again, I guess, fight, fight, fight. It looked like, to me, it looked like he was pissed off, right? Angry. So that's what my first impression was, like he was dropping the F-bomb, but okay, maybe he said fight, fight, fight. Fist in the air, American flag flying overhead, blood crossed his cheek. But I'm sorry guys, but I have a hard time like just blindly accepting this kind of Hollywood version of how the world works. Like I say this and I'll say it again, if the deep state, if all of these spook agencies that are specialized in the art of political assassination, right? If they really wanted Trump dead that bad, he would be dead, guys. You know, this isn't Disney, this isn't Hollywood. This is the real world, guys. It's not that hard for them to take care of somebody. Right? Osama bin Laden, right? That was the big thing. Like, Osama was in hiding. It took him how many years? I think like 5 years or something like that to finally track down Osama. Meanwhile, he's hanging out on dialysis, hanging out in hospitals. But, you know, the greatest intelligence gathering network on the earth cannot find Osama bin Laden. Yeah. Right. No, they had a convenient enemy that they wanted to continue to stretch out this fear climate and implement all their draconian, unconstitutional laws and wars. And yeah, Osama was pretty convenient, wasn't he? To justify all that. And so, if Trump, they wanted him dead, he'd be dead. That's my argument. Could this have possibly been a crazy guy? See, I don't even think on that level. I don't think that the deep state wants to endanger their assets, right? I mean, he's got Secret Service protection. You know, they won't give that to RFK Jr., will they? If he was a threat, why would they give him Secret Service protection? You know, why wouldn't there be somebody in the Secret Service that would take him out, right? Was it a real bullet that hit Trump's ear? What evidence do we have besides the miracle shot? And people have made the point that the angle of that bullet was too low to hit him in the top of the ear. So, oops, little mistake there. Again, you just keep questioning the narrative, and a lot of these questions just kind of pop up, more and more of them. So how hard would it have been for Trump? Let's just say, here's my theory. This is just hypothetical. I'm not saying this is on high from God or anything like that. I'm not a prophet. Trump had a blood packet tucked behind his ear. The shots go off. Trump pops that blood packet. Now Trump has blood on his ear. That's one scenario. Trump grabs for his ear, has a little bit of blood on his hand, falls to the ground. One of the Secret Service guys, you know, smears a little extra blood on his ear because he's completely covered. Nobody can see him at that point. Is that more likely than a bullet just whizzing past his head and just barely nicking his ear to the point where you can't even see damage? I've looked at close-ups of his ear. You can't even see actual damage to his ear other than a bunch of blood. I'm just playing devil's advocate, guys. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just saying there's a lot of different possibilities in the narrative that we're being given, and we should always question, especially on the right, even when it comes to Trump. We should always question the narrative, the official story being put out for our mass consumption that is now, you know, I mean, I don't even know why we need an election at this point. Just stick Trump in the White House, right? I mean, that's the mindset of everybody on the right. And another theory is that, you know, RFK will just kind of fade into obscurity now. He was becoming a true threat. He was polling in some polls at 19. I mean, a huge threat, this independent outsider, by all measures, by all appearances. They would have had to include him in the next debate, possibly. But now, after this, I think Trump is just going to be more powerful than ever, more popular than ever. And again, what's he going to be able to get away with once he's in office? Without question. Because fellow patriots like me who question, the golden-haired Messiah, I guess we're Antifa now, right, guys? We're enemies of the state. We're potential shooters now because we don't like Trump. And I'm not saying that there weren't real shots fired, Was this guy, oh, they're looking at turkeys now. Okay, we're making another little detour, tourist, right? Yeah, I'm not saying there weren't real shots fired. Was this guy a mentally ill patsy? This has been demonstrated time and time again in the past, where the FBI sets up a mentally ill patsy. Was this guy a patriot? I thought he was doing something good for his country. Was he instructed just to take a few shots into the crowd? Was he dumb enough not to think that he would get his head blown off in doing so? I don't know. But we've seen crazier things in the past. I know it looks really real, guys. I know it looks really convincing. But I've learned to question everything. I mean, after 9/11, when they in broad daylight brought down 2 towers, 3 towers actually, to count Building 7, and kind of rewrote physics, rewrote science. The first time in history when not 1 but 2, 3 even buildings collapsed due to a fire, steel frame buildings. When they can pull off something like that, and they're that evil to kill, over 3,000 American citizens in the process, and some, was it million Iraqis that followed, you can hold nothing against these people, right? They will do anything in order to cement power, in order to grasp, in order to finally attain, in order to finally implement their New World Order. And if that means, Trump being their greatest asset to convince the American people to go along with whatever kind of agenda Trump is going to lead in these next 4 years. 1 casualty, it's a pretty small sacrifice, right? In their mind, in their satanic quest for complete control of the world. And I know this, it just flies in the face of everything that you want to naturally believe, right? That Trump is the outsider, that Trump is this heroic figure that's standing up against all odds. Even God and his angels now are capable of diverting bullets from Trump's head in order for him to fulfill his mission. I can just imagine some of these evangelicals and some of these false prophets that talk about, how Trump is God's David, and how Trump is going to save America and bring America back to God. Yeah, he might, but it's going to be a false revival. If you understand Bible prophecy, America, the lamb-like beast, will lead out in the implementation of the mark of the beast. The first beast who was wounded by the sword, or appeared to be wounded by the sword. The sword is the word of God. The papacy, after all the time prophecies were fulfilled, Protestant Reformation, the Gutenberg press began to print Bibles. The papacy was wounded by the sword of the word, the power of God's word in the commoner's hand, in the common language, is what, stripped Rome of her power. And now we have this call, this siren call from the right that we need to get God back into government, right? We need to get back to God. Now, there is some truth. Like, the devil is a counterfeit. There is always some truth in his lies. I tell people that all the time. It's time to get right with God. I've told people this after the shooting, and I put out that short. That, we need to look to the Savior of mankind, not to these fallen men to solve our spiritual problems, right? So yes, it is a time to look to God, but it is not a time to look to the state to solve our God problem, right? To act, to take the place of God. And that is the true threat. That is the true danger. And this has all been prophesied, people. America will lead out in forcing all the world to worship the image of the first beast of Rome. And I try to hammer this home all the time, guys, and it might get old after a while. But this is Earth's final message, right? This is the three angels' message. Come out of her, my people. Be not a partaker in her sins, or you will receive her plagues. The great harlot, the whore of Babylon, historically depicted, 500 plus years ago. All of those major Protestant reformers identified from the scripture. As soon as they had the scripture in their own tongue, they had Bibles in their own hands. They were no longer chained to the pulpits. They all recognized that papal Rome was the very seat of Antichrist. And now you see, time and time again, this instrumental role that the Pope is playing in world affairs. He was just invited, the first religious leader ever to be invited to the G7. Why the Pope? Why is the Pope so special, guys? Does people ever ask these questions? Because the Vatican is the oldest globalist institution on earth, and it has been meddling with world politics for hundreds and hundreds of years. And early American Protestants, those rugged individualists, led by God with a strong faith in God's word, they all recognize that the papacy, and Roman Catholics in particular, were a potential threat to our republic. Because you can't be a true devout Catholic, despite all these posers right now, these patriot posers on social media, so proud of their newfound Catholicism, right? You can't be a true devout Catholic without answering to the Pope. The Pope is the head of the church, right? And so when JFK ran as president, there was a huge controversy in this country. This was just back in, the late 60s, right?
But because I am a Catholic, and no Catholic has ever been elected president, the real issues in this campaign have been obscured, perhaps deliberately, in some quarters less responsible than this. So it is apparently necessary for me to state once again, not what kind of church I believe in, for that should be important only to me, but what kind of America I believe in. I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no Catholic prelate would tell the president, should he be Catholic, how to act, and no Protestant minister would tell his parishioners for whom to vote, where no church or church school is granted any public funds or political preference, and where no man is denied public office merely because his religion differs from the president who might appoint him or the people who might elect him. I believe in an America that is officially neither Catholic, Protestant, nor Jewish, where no public official either requests or accepts instructions on public policy from the Pope, the National Council of Churches, or any other ecclesiastical source.
There's no conflict between my responsibilities as a public official, carry out my duties and obligations, and my faith. I am sworn to carry out and serve the public interest, and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I do in the Senate. That's what I'll do if I'm president, and there's nothing that can prevent me from doing that. The Constitution and my conscience happen to be in very close harmony, because I happen to believe it's the ideal arrangement for a society. I want to see the people free to practice all their various religions. We are quite unique in this regard. I mean, many of the countries in Europe have a close union between church and state. We don't. Now, merely because we have had experiences historically where there has been a close union between some countries which were Catholic and the state, or between, as there now is, the Church of England, the Queen is the head of the Church of England as well as head of the state, or in some of the Scandinavian countries where the Lutheran Church is the official state church. But here in the United States, Episcopalians, Lutherans, Catholics, Jews, Presbyterians, Methodists, all of us, happen to believe that we do not want an official state church. I would be opposed to it. If there were 99% of the population were Catholics, I would still be opposed to it.
It wasn't too long ago. Now it's not even a question, right? When Biden ran for president, we don't even question his religion now, right? But when JFK ran, it was a real it was a real, especially in like these Bible Belt states, these Protestants, they still remember their history. There was still a pretty strong divide between Protestantism and Catholicism. And so Kennedy had to stand up there and say, I will be faithful first to the Constitution over the Pope. And those are some big words coming from a man in such a position. Look into the Catholic doctrines. Look into their teachings. The Pope is the head of the church. It is heresy to think for yourself. Why would any freedom-loving patriot want to be part of that system? A cage of every unclean bird. A hateful demonic spirit. That is how it's described in Revelations 18. Because I'm here to get water, I just wanted to end on that prophetic note. Everything is right now just playing right into prophecy. And, man, we're entering into some strange days, folks. And, again, I just want to stress, get right with God. Don't look to the state to get your children right with God. Teach your children, the laws of God. You don't need Bibles. You don't need 10 Commandments in schools. You need to teach them that in the homes. Raise up good Christians, right? And then we will have good, godly people in government. John Adams talked about this. A moral and godly people is required for the constitutional republic to sustain itself. Anyway, I hope I stressed my point. I'm going to, like I said, put together a podcast here soon, and I'll lay out all the facts. I'll lay out my case. Right now, I probably just sound like a rambling, crazy person, but that's okay. That's why you tune into me, right, guys? Hopefully now that the guest will be leaving on Monday, hopefully by Tuesday, maybe as soon as Tuesday, I can start producing a podcast. They are hugely time consuming, so I appreciate all the support out there from you guys. I know my truck is beeping again. I could probably just turn it off, right? Let me make sure I'm parked in the right spot. Yep, I think we're good. I've done this enough time to know where I'm parked. So. But I'll turn off this noisy truck. Isn't that nice? The sound of silence. That's the good part about doing a podcast too, is the sound controlled environment, good audio and all that, special effects and all that fun stuff. But yeah, all this stuff takes time, folks. So any kind of support I'd appreciate. I hope you guys appreciate my willingness. There's a few handful of other people like David Icke out there. It's funny how much I agree with David Icke lately. I used to kind of poke fun about his reptoid lizard people theories and all that, but I'm actually really starting to be on the same page with David Icke lately. He put out the idea that, same thing I said, like, why is it all of a sudden, like, everybody on the right, they'll question everything else that happens in the world, but when it comes to Trump, that's heresy to question what happened yesterday, right, during this assassination attempt. You gotta question everything, folks, and always ask yourself, where are they leading us next? And, will this lead to more bipartisan shredding of our constitutional rights, under the guise of keeping us safe? So many people like this. Again, it's so dangerous, this groupthink collectivist mindset, right? We are individualists, right? As Americans, as patriots, right? We should be able to agree on that. Rugged individualist. And you get guys like Kid Rock out there. You F with Trump, you F with me, acting like a big shot, right? Mr. Shoot up some cases of Bud Light only to flip on a dime and just say, oh, there's nothing wrong with Bud Light. Yeah, you must have got a nice little lucrative deal there, huh, Kid Rock? How easy these people will blow this or that direction based on how the wind is blowing or based upon how much money they're offered. In any case, Trump should not be an extension of your own ego, folks, okay? Nobody should want any figure or any president to be shot at, to be killed, right? But it doesn't mean that you associate your own self with this political figurehead, right? We are individualists, right? We have our own sphere of influence in the world. And like I said, that more than anything, other than looking to government to solve all of our problems, other than looking to political figurehead, would-be messiahs, what's really going to help this country, I don't know if it's going to save it. I think we're beyond that point. Prophecy has been, is being fulfilled at lightning speed right now. it's just a matter of time, right? Until prophecy is completely fulfilled and, mark of the beast. Time to head for the hills, folks. But yeah, if anything would make America better, it's if people would be more rugged individualists and reflect the character of Christ. I think that's the biggest thing. If we are Christian Protestant patriots, nothing's more powerful than that. If you want to save this country, look to the Savior. In any case, God bless everybody. I got to get going. We're supposed to meet up later, and I'm sitting here chit-chatting. So hopefully that all made sense. Podcast should come out soon. Look for that. And thanks everybody again for the support. I'm just here trying to get you all to think outside the voting booth, right, guys? God bless. Nightwatch N8. Till next time. Signing out. So I just want you to entertain this idea with me that, maybe Trump isn't our greatest ally. Maybe Trump isn't a friend. Maybe he is a Judas Iscariot figure, a Benedict Arnold, right? And, with this final death blow, both candidates are running on, you don't vote for me, it's the end of our democracy, right? Maybe if this final death blow of the New World Order to America comes in the form of a candidate who everybody who loves America, who wants what's best for America, America first, who wants to preserve our national sovereignty, who wants to return America to our old ways, right? And that prosperity that we once had as the greatest nation on earth. Maybe this final deception will be in the form of a guy who everybody who would otherwise oppose whatever kind of, whether that's blockchain, digital currency. Trump has already, made the statement that he's pro-Bitcoin now. He's already made statements in the past that he wants, Visa tracking tracing system for all these illegals breaking through the border. He's the guy who's going to create law and order, right? He's going to solve the border crisis. What if it's the guy you trust the most, who they will use? Ultimately, the devil, Satan will use in order to convince you all to adopt this final death blow to our republic. Digital currency. Once they implement something like that, folks, you can kiss your freedoms goodbye. They can control every financial transaction and who is allowed to spend their money this or that way. Won't even have a choice anymore, right? How much taxes are pulled out of your check each month, each week, each year. And that's why I'm asking, what can Trump get away with next? After all of this, after this martyr complex, this attempted assassination, what will everybody kind of look the other way? What kind of legislation, what kind of executive orders can Trump rush through now that everybody is 100% on board with God's chosen one, right? Who thwarted death, took a bullet, right, for America, I believe Alex Jones put it. The devil is the Satan is the current ruler of this world, folks. That's what I want everybody to just kind of let that sink in. That God is not currently running things. He allows things to happen, right? So ultimately, even Satan has to go through God. But this is a fallen world, and it's being run by satanic psychopaths, right? In Revelation, it describes the 10 kings who gathered together to persecute God's people in this New World Order. And they're in bed with the harlot of Rome. And ultimately, they all take orders from the dragon, from the fallen one, fallen false god of this world, Lucifer, Satan. Just stay frosty, patriots. That's all I'm talking about. Question everything.